Gallery in Manassas, Virginia. I'm René Dickerson, and you're invited to my first retrospective of my artwork from the past 50 plus years. I'm originally from Oakland, California, and I've been a resident of Northern Virginia for the last 19 years. And so I hope that everyone is safe, being safe from the pandemic and practicing safe distancing, and everyone is well. So let's get started. First and foremost, I'd like to invite you on my journey by introducing the very first piece that was created in 1968 in Oakland, California. This particular piece is untitled, but it's a very important piece to me. I was in 11th grade, and that was some 53 years ago that I created this piece. It's a character that was a part of many characters that I was creating at that time. The image is on dry pastel on poster board, and one of the reasons why this piece is so very important to me is because at one time my father framed the piece. It wasn't in this particular frame, but he did something that is really not supposed to be done in art, and he taped the image. And so you can see the edges of the piece where I gingerly pulled the tape off, and in doing so, pulled off part of the color from the image. However, that added the uniqueness to the image. And some years later, my oldest son, he was probably about 4 or 5 years old, he took a red marker pen, and you can see in the left eye, in the corner of that eye, he colored that in. Now, what's special about this is 3 generations. My work, my father's undoing there when he put the tape on there, and also my son. It's very special to me, a piece that is close to my heart. And I wanted to frame it with all of the flaws and everything to show that it represents 3 generations of Dickerson. Now, moving over to our left here, this particular piece is very special to me as well because I have a dear friend in Oakland, California, Rudolph Thomas, who came to me with an idea to create a one-page calendar, or a year-at-a-glance calendar. And so we came up with this particular idea. He found an image on his job, and so we altered it, and we put the tennis motif in there because at the time the tennis was being played by a lot of people that we knew in the Oakland community. And so the name of this particular piece is 30 Love. Now imagine, this was my first attempt at a 4-color process. And I thought at the time that I could only use 4 colors in producing the piece. However, I learned later on that I could use all colors of the rainbow to get the 4 colors. It's just the process of offset litho. But again, this piece is 30 Love, and this particular piece, if you can imagine, it was a year-at-a-glance calendar. Suitable for framing was the image on the top at the end of the year. It would hang all year, and so we were selling these particular calendars for $5. And so we had quite an education in the actual creating the image, going to the printers and learning about the printing process, and actually going out, putting on a suit and tie, going from door to door, selling the calendars. And so we had a great time in doing this, very educational. Now, this led to the next image that we're coming to. This particular image, as was the first, the original was painted acrylic paint on a watercolor board. This particular piece is entitled, Don't You Leave That Curb. Now, you probably remember when we were children, our parents, especially mothers, wanted us to stay in front of the house and particularly in the front yard. And so this particular image was modeled after some dear friends of mine in California. It was his mother and his uncle. They were twins, and the image was taken in Alameda, California during the Depression years. And so that's where we see the clothes that the children are wearing. But the title of this particular image again is Don't You Leave That Curb. And it is a beautiful piece, one that is especially dear to my heart as well. And this was the second attempt at producing a calendar. And of course, this piece is out of print and in high demand, but this is the only one that I have left. Now, moving over from this, as you can see that I wanted to stay with the children motif. Again, we have this particular piece was from a calendar, Unity in '83. This particular calendar, or this image, of course, captures the various races of children being non-threatening, and so I wanted to capture the big smiles of these children. And as you can see, based on the clothing, that the image was modeled after children from the 40s and the 50s. And it's a real fun piece, and I enjoyed putting this particular piece together. Again, this was acrylic on a watercolor cold pressed paper. Now, moving away from this particular image, we go down to a series that is very dear to me. This particular series, Colored People. The first time that I created this particular series, or when I started creating this series, was in the 90s, the early 90s. I was exhibiting artwork in the Alameda County Fair, and the first particular image from this series was the Colored People. I remember when I created the Colored People, I entered it in the Alameda County Fair, and it was featured on the cover of the brochure for all of the artwork there, and it won first prize, and I was very excited about it. And this whole entire series, the Colored People series, well, the inspiration behind this was when we were children, growing up in school, we all used crayons in school. And if you can remember, crayons were very important for us children. And in the Crayola box was this one flesh tone. Well, in my adulthood, I came to appreciate that we're all people of color, and I wanted to create images that represented all races of people, the unity of mankind. And it's a fun series, Colored People. And our visit at Hawaii, I believe it was in the 87 is when I went to Hawaii, and I wanted to capture the feeling of Hawaii, some of the landmarks there in Hawaii, the Waikiki Beach, the hula. And so what I have them doing here is swaying to the hula there. And it's just a fun series. Again, this is a dry pastel. You see Diamond Head in the background and the Waikiki Beach. And this was the third out of the series, but this next one is Colored Kids. This was the second particular piece in that particular series, the Colored Kids. And again, I wanted to capture the unity and the fact that children are non-threatening. This particular piece is fun. We were able to have an entire series of merchandising. We had caps, we had t-shirts, We had calendars, all types of merchandising was created from this particular series. And one other piece that I hope to include in the series before it's all finished is I want to do some colored folks. Now in the colored folks, there will be older people, and you know how we would use crayons, and after the crayon was worn down, then we would tear the paper around. So the next one will be colored folks. They'll be older, and the paper will be torn. It's just a fun aspect of this particular series. Now, the last point of what I really want to bring out is the jingle is that we're all just a box of crayons. That's the fun part of this thing. This next piece, the new Hebrides Chief. This particular piece, it's a pencil drawing that I did on a watercolor cold press paper. As you can see, the pixels gives it a texture to it. But this particular image was modeled from a photograph that I found in the National Geographic magazine. Now, one of the things that fascinated me about this and the challenges was I wanted to capture the shadows. This particular print is a dual tone, which means that it actually was run through the press 2 times to pick up the blacks in it. And I really appreciated how the printer was able to capture that. Now, the tennis shoes are British as well as the socks. And what fascinated me about this was that I wanted to capture this primitive man, so to speak, with the modern British tennis shoes and socks meeting the primitive. And so this particular image was very important to me as well. The New Hebrides Chief, which the New Hebrides Islands is east of New Guinea. And while those shoes, they look like Chuck Taylors, but they are actually British. This is a fun piece. This blue cat is just a fun piece. I had so much fun. And this piece actually captures the lines that I have going on in my images. This is actually created for this particular show. You can see the dimensions, the colors, the underpainting comes through. All of these lines derived from my working with BMW. When I first created the BMW Rondell logo, I started experimenting with lines and various shapes and swirls and colors, and I came to appreciate that when you think of art, there are 5 types of lines that are created in art. Vertical, horizontal, diagonal, zigzag, and curves. And when I created the BMW Rondell, that abstract version of the Rondell, I didn't realize that those particular lines were included. And I learned about the 5 types of lines in art after the fact. And so I started including that in all of my work. And that's where these particular lines come from. I mean, you can see the richness of the colors that are layered on top of one another. I actually, in this style that I'm painting now, I'm actually going into the paintings at least 4 to 5 times, including the original composition, and then the underpainting, and then laying on the lines, and then highlighting the lines. Part of the drop shadows that you're seeing with the dimension, that comes from my background in painting signs, growing up in Oakland, running up and down the street, painting the signs and stuff. And so I've been able to take that knowledge and include it in the work. Isn't that a fun piece? I mean, that's just so much fun he's there just kind of looking at us and just taking it in, as cats do. Now, this next piece, this particular painting is entitled Gaze of a Tiger. It's kind of a spin on Tiger Woods, the golfer. And at the same time, I was inspired by this piece by the artist, my namesake, René Magritte. Magritte had a painting entitled The Blank Signature, where there was a woman on a horse that was bisected. And so that's what I was trying to capture with this particular painting, with the golf course in the background. And the tiger is actually placing that ball in the hole, and you can see that he's focused on making that shot. And so it's a fun piece, but it's kind of a spin on Tiger Woods, and that's where the woods, the trees, and the golf course and all. But it's a fun piece. And then as you notice, the skies, my skies I've been able to use with the various lines and that sort of thing. It's just a lot of fun having to be able to paint this way now. So moving over to our next piece, this is one of my favorite birds, the toucan. And one of the reasons why is because the toucan is a very colorful bird, but it's also a very curious bird. And so I wanted to include my patterns, developing the various styles on the leaves and the patterns throughout the piece. But it's a fun piece, a piece that I really enjoyed creating. And he's curious about us as well, as we look at his patterns and his colors, and he's also kind of gazing at us. So moving over to this next particular piece, this is just kind of an idea that I got. This is the man in the yellow hat, and I would venture to say that there probably are maybe 4 paintings. This is a recycled canvas. And there are about 4 different paintings under this particular canvas, but this is the one that will remain on this particular canvas, the man in the yellow hat. And it's just a figment of my imagination, something that I created. One of the things in my background, growing up, hats were very important with men in my life. My father, my friends that I went to school with, we wore a lot of hats. Now, this particular hat is a bowler, and it's just kind of a contrast of the yellows and the blues and the greens and purples. Just, again, a figment of the imagination of a face of a man with a yellow hat. Now, this next piece, Elephant Run. This particular painting, this composition is relatively new in terms of I've incorporated my lines and the patterns and shapes and colors. It's very abstract, but it's at the same time recognizable. There are 4 elephants in this particular painting and a mouse. So what I'm trying to get the viewer to do with my work, with the lines and the colors and the patterns, is to draw you into the paintings. I want you to really look. There are discoveries that you're able to find as you look at them. Some are intentional, some are unintentional, but the idea is to capture the attention of the viewer, to pull them into the painting, and again, have fun with viewing it. One of the things that I appreciate about art is if you can't live with it, then I guess you shouldn't have it. So this particular piece, Elephant Run, is an exploration of this particular animal. Now, one of the things about elephants, it's been said that elephants are afraid of mice. And I hope as you gaze around, you'll be able to find the mice, or the mouse, in this particular painting, and as well the 4 elephants that are in. Of course, the one in the major figure is prominent there. You can see him, but there are others besides him. Now let's move over to this next particular painting, and this one is While My Guitar Gently Weeps. This particular painting was inspired by a Beatles song that even after I did the composition in the painting, I learned that the Beatles had a song. George Harrison of the Beatles wrote a song, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And so that's where the title of the piece came from. If you ever get an opportunity, you'll see that it is a beautiful song. And it's kind of abstract, well, very abstract, but at the same time. Now, what I wanted to capture here was the guitarist is so much a part of the guitar and vice versa. As you can look at the guitar and the guitarist, they become one. That was the inspiration behind that. Now, as we move over, this particular painting is probably my favorite painting that I've done in, the last last 3 years. This particular painting I created in, the summer of 2019, I believe it was. And 2018, wow, time goes by quick. This painting was created after I saw this movie, The Lady in Gold, and The Woman in Gold, rather. It was a painting by the Austrian painter Gustav Klimt. And that particular painting was actually stolen by the Nazis. There was a movie that depicted that particular painting and the story of the painting and how the family, the Austrian family, was able to get the painting back. Well, after seeing that, I wanted to do a painting that represented a woman in gold or in the yellow. And so the model that I used here was Erykah Badu. And I captured the dress that she would wear, but the jewelry I created, it is actually a 23 karat gold leaf that I use in a lot of my works. And the fascinating thing about this, besides the composition, the woman, but also when you look at the background, the abstract background, and this was unintentional, there are various things going on in the background, such as in the right-hand corner, the top right-hand corner there, see if you can see or pick out the snake that's there. Or there's a toucan next to the snake. And if we pan over to the left side, right above her head there's an elephant. And coming down to the left side, perhaps you'll pick out near her legs there are faces of maybe cartoon characters. And the bottom right, there is what looks to be a clown. Now those things were unintentional, and as you look at the piece, perhaps you'll be able to find other objects, faces, musical notes, all types of things that were unintended, but actually happens in the creative process. And this is a simple still life. It's simply titled Still Life with a Lemon. This was derived from, I do a lot of sketches from time to time, just studies, little pencil drawings. And for this particular show was just a little small pencil drawing, and I turned it into this still life. This is one of my favorite paintings in this show as well. Very simple, and just a fun piece. Now moving over to our left here, the next painting, this one is simply Black Flower. And basically she is growing out of the foliage, and just a beautiful, beautiful lady gazing into the distance. I wanted to capture the beauty, the eyes. She's part of a series I called Women in Head Wrap series. And just a creative piece. I'm having fun again with the lines, and if you notice the leaves, having fun creating those leaves and the foliage and different things going on inside of those as well. The patterns, the lines, the colors. This next painting, another favorite, Somersault. Again, this was inspired by a Stevie Wonder song. Now, this particular one I know was on the Songs in the Key of Life, Somersault. This particular painting was titled by my nephew, who lives in Ohio. I sent him the image. He's the middle son of my sister. And when I showed him this painting, he reminded me of the song by Stevie Wonder, Somersault, another song that my sister and I was very fond of. And now the Somersault is the hat itself that is worn during the summer. They're soft, straw hats that women and men, of course, can wear the straw hats during the summer, but that was the inspiration with this particular painting here. See the beauty and the colors, the rainbow in her skin tones and stuff. She's just stunning. Had fun painting those colors and patterns as well. This next painting, this painting is the Black Pearl Earring. I was showing this particular painting to, describing the painting, and there's an artist, Johannes Vermeer, who did a painting of the girl in the pearl earrings. Now, it wasn't my intention, but I saw the resemblance when I looked at the painting, in that the pose is similar. Of course, this is one of the paintings out of my series, Women in Head Wrap series. And again, just a beautiful lady growing out of the foliage with the patterns, the colors. Of course, this particular one, the green overtones are very special in this one. And again, the skin tones are very, has the rainbow colors. I wanted to pick up a lot of the various colors that are in the rainbow with this painting. Dizzy's Horn. Dizzy's Horn, growing up early in my life, some of the background music was jazz. All of the jazz greats, my mom and my dad and their friends, just, played the jazz. The jazz was always part of the background. And so I wanted to capture Dizzy's horn because that horn was unique. I wanted that to really capture and say what all of the jazz players or musicians were a part of. Again, the patterns of lines. I'm trying to pull the viewer into the image where he's under the spotlight, and then he has his bandmates in the back adding to the groove, and he's just into that particular composition. And again, the horn is 23 karat gold leaf. The mouthpiece is an aluminum leaf, but I use that in a lot of my paintings, the gold. And the gold, the gilding of the gold came about from my sign painting days. I was able to incorporate that into my work. It's kind of a mixed media. But the beauty about the 23 karat gold leaf is that it will always stay bright because it is a true gold. All right, now this particular painting is Funk in Studio A. This painting was inspired by the Motown group, the house band, the Funk Brothers. And while the Motown artists, they got a lot of the publicity, the Funk Brothers, well, they were in the background, but they were very important to the Motown sound. In fact, the Funk Brothers, it's said that they were they played on more hits than the Beatles, Elvis Presley, and the Rolling Stones combined. And so I wanted to pay tribute to that music because without the Funk Brothers, Motown wouldn't be what it is. And again, this particular painting, what Berry Gordy was able to do, they were able to find these jazz musicians in and around Detroit, and they brought them there to Hitsville, and there they were in Studio A in the Snake Pit, just pounding out that beautiful music that we come to know and love behind all of the Motown artists. And so this is just a portion. It helps us to appreciate artists like James Jamerson on the guitar and Benny Benjamin on the drums and the various saxophonists. You had Earl Van Dyke on guitar. And so all of these men were part of that Motown sound, and I certainly wanted to bring attention to what they did and what we came to appreciate. Now, this is a limited edition print of the original, but as you can see, it's been hand embellished with the 23 karat gold leaf and texturized. But we also use this image as the cover art for the Jazz Legacy Foundation, a fundraiser for a big jazz concert series that happens in the Virginia Beach, Norfolk, and Hampton, Virginia area each year. And so they've been using my artwork as a cover designs for most of their advertisement for their big jazz concert series. And we raise quite a bit of money to help them with that. So now this particular piece, because I wanted to save this for last because of what we're doing with the Temptations, and this being the Temptations' 60th year anniversary. They've commissioned me to create and design their brand logo for all of their merchandising that is to go on the 60th anniversary merchandise that will go throughout the world. And so we're really excited about that. In fact, that has already been created. The contract has been signed. They have chosen the design. And I wish we could show you what that design looks like, but because of the confidentiality and the clause until they actually display it, well then we'll have to wait for that. But that's really exciting that we had that opportunity to create that design for the Temptations. And so what we would like to also mention is that we'll have some additional dates. So we want to encourage you to visit as often as you can while the show is up. It'll be up through the rest of this month, February, and through March, the 27th. So we'll have additional dates if you can't get into the link for this portion. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm so glad that you can join me in my journey.